Hey squad, before we get into today's episode, I want to give a quick shout out to the RMR Training app. Yes. So the RMR Training app has our brand new 12-week training program. This is our flagship program that we point a lot of our athletes who come into the RMR Training app toward. It's going to be progressive. It's one of our peak and perform plans that will have a progression and will lead you in to your next HYROX event. Each year, we take what we've learned in the past, we keep what did work, and we get rid of the things that we think didn't work, or we iterate on it so that it works better. And this year, we're really excited because it's in our brand new platform for the app that also includes the RMR community. The community has a robust number of athletes already in there who are training specifically for HYROX. So there's a ton of support. All the coaches here at RMR Training are in there answering questions, making sure that people know exactly what they need to do to improve their HYROX. You can get all of this, the brand new program, for 12 weeks, and we have nearly a dozen other programs, all for one price. It's just $39.95 a month. We're real excited about this new 12-week program, as now we have things like it's a better user experience being in on the community. We have long-form video guidance within the actual app itself. We have native HYROX leaderboards that we've built from scratch. Most of the leaderboards now don't really cross over very well for HYROX. This one we built so it makes perfect sense for HYROX, and a lot more cool features in the 12-week program and the app. You can check it out with the link down in the show notes. Let's get to the episode. What's up, squad? It's your man's Rich Ryan. We're going solo today. Maybe like once or twice a year, 2 to 3 times a year, I'll pop on and kind of give a debrief of some things in HYROX training that I believe are working well and some other things that are working less well. And you know, this is mostly based off of my training, so my own personal experience and what's going on in the training space. It is such a new space that for me anyway, that I'm just like exploring so often, and I will head down the wrong road. But other times I find a way. So this is going to be based a lot off of the last several months since June, since the HYROX World Championships, and what I've been doing preparing for this next race that is a major in Hamburg. I'm recording this on Friday the 26th. It will be in 1 week today. Maybe I'll be even racing like at right now as I'm speaking. So I'm just like speaking this. I'm just gonna like project. I'm just gonna do a play-by-play of what's actually going to be going on during that time in my brain, and I'm gonna do that for an hour. I think that's going to be a really solid, strong episode. No, but for real, we're going to talk about the different things in terms of strength training, endurance, just HYROX work, aerobic training, and structure, and whatever else comes to mind. Maybe some nutrition pieces that I've been kicking around in terms of supplementation and some different stuff that I've been trying. So let's go ahead and dive in after I tell you a little bit more about the RMR Training app. We have some really cool things going on over there currently, where we are building out some ways to help athletes figure out the best route in building their season. So we just put out a piece of software called the Program Picker. We have several programs on the RMR Training app, and it can be a bit overwhelming. So what we did, we made a prescription that you can kind of go through, a prescription software that you can go through, and it can tell you what program you should follow, what you should do after it, and just really help you understand if we have what you need. So we'll drop a link down below so you can check that out, or you could head on over to rmr.training, take a look at that Program Picker if you're not currently in the RMR Training app, and just give you an idea of like what could work for you going forward. You get all that for one low price. It's great. And we're all in there. You get a community as well. That's the main thing, is the community aspect as well as the training programs. It's been great. You should check it out. I highly recommend. All right, so let's get into this. A couple things that I tried a little bit differently coming after the World Championships, right? I felt like I had a really good grasp around how to prepare for the event itself of HYROX, right? And now that I have that I didn't always have, where I was kind of going back and forth, the best ways to train from a qualities perspective. And that's usually the lens that I'll take. Like, what are the demands of the race? How can I train for the demands of the race so that I can be as prepared as possible for the demands of the race? And I've taken a lot of those principles that I've learned from running in particular, and like as a collegiate runner, and try to apply that directly to HYROX. And for like, it can work, but as a collegiate runner, I was like middle distance, right? Like my events were between 4 and like 8.5 minutes. And now it's like 60 minutes. So the principles that go into like this like high end endurance training, which is mostly like middle distance compared to what this event is. And I never really ventured into like that half marathon space so much. And I think that's kind of where, if like there was like a half marathon specialist, like the training in terms of what they're going after in terms of stimulus is probably fairly similar. Where in the past I would like kind of break things down and want to do shorter interval pieces for speed and just try to stitch together a bunch of those. For me personally, that didn't work. So I was able to kind of throw that out and think about the race that I'm actually training for, as opposed to the taking what has worked for me in the past and just trying to like move that as a one-to-one. And just as a side, like that's the whole deal with this sport, right? Like it's so new that yes, you might be doing another sport like CrossFit and think that those principles might just be what you do for HYROX, or if you're training for a mile or a 5K or whatever it is. If you are training in cross country skiing, I don't know, and you might just be like, yeah, I can do this, so I can do that. But you need the experience. You need to like. I found that is just like so helpful. I guess principles can get you to a certain level, right? And it will give you a better idea than if you're starting off and having like, and if you're brand new, like having some training principles in your pocket will definitely expedite your improvement. But the anecdotal stuff is like, it can't be replaced. Take you can't put people in a lab. You can't take it from other sports and just like apply it one to one. It just doesn't really work that way, in my experience. Maybe it works for like that in some of the people's experience, and maybe I'm wrong. But like the actual event itself, there are demands, and I will get into like how I kind of structure that, how I like kind of go about that in a bit. But another piece that I wanted to work on, of course, was the strength element. I feel like there is a point where so yeah, hold on. So I'm going to do strength, then I'm going to do some conditioning with the HYROX work. I'm talking about aerobic training. Yes, I talked about this also. We're going to start with strength. So in the strength piece, in the past, typically what I will do, and I've done this again, and I believe this does work, is that as it gets closer to the event, you get more and more specific to the demands of the event, right? So a lot of times in strength training, we're working to get as strong as possible. And in terms of like specifics for HYROX, some of these movements aren't going to be at like a one-to-one in terms of being super advantageous for improving your high-end strength, right? Like, yes, a sled push will make you very, very strong. And maybe it is as good. I don't know. But like in terms of like vertical forces and just like overcoming like a back squat, probably better, right? If it was like, let's try to see who can put out the most strength, however you want to. I'm actually not sure. I guess however you want to measure it, like yeah, like the back squat will probably be a better way. A deadlift is probably better than a sled pull, just because of like the mechanical positions. So in terms of like getting as strong as possible, yeah, there's probably better ways to do it. And I think a lot of times it's more fun to lean that direction of like strength training, so that because we're more familiar with it, and that and it's just like fun to get strong that way. But as it gets closer to the event, like narrowing the focus for me has been really helpful. Making sure everything that I'm doing is really specific toward the demands of the event. However, further away from that, like say, call it 6 weeks. Further away from those 6 weeks, it can be a little bit more broad. It could be more general. And this is like a really important element to consider in your training, is to give yourself that space to actually improve in other elements than just the HYROX stuff. And I think I'm probably more specific than most people in this space, but I still will like make it more broad and doing things that are a little bit more fun, or going to give me strength in a different in a different way that will ultimately translate, not as much. Like if it's like for a sled push, like this is like 100% 1-to-1. This, if you get better at practicing the sled push, you'll get better at the racing for the sled push. But then say you do a block of training that is Bulgarian split squats, for example, and say like, yeah, like this will probably get you like 25 to 50% of the way in terms of improving, and the crossover is like that much, like a 1-to-2 crossover or whatever. But when you get back into the specifics, you have a different level of strength in a different area. So that 1-to-1 training that you are doing is then just going to be better, right? So that's the point with strength training and just like off-season and base building training in general, right? Is like giving yourself more strength, uh, physically, aerobically, um, nutritionally, mentally, the whole thing, every aspect. That's what this is for. And then when you hone down into the specifics, you're better off doing the specific work. Pardon. It's the morning. Drink coffee. And then from there, so from what I wanted to do, I added in more frequency. And this has been hard to do in terms of strength training for me, especially when it gets into like this big block of training, just because it's hard to recover from. It's hard to perform well during strength training when endurance is really high, and it's hard to like fit it in terms of time. It's just like a lot of time. So but I did want to increase the frequency here as everything was going up in terms of my total volume. And just an aside here, this might be a complete tangent, but it's an important one. Last year at the beginning of the season, I ran like my best time ever in Chicago. It was about a year ago, last November, 10 months ago, I say. And from that moment, and in because of that, because I had this time to work broadly, right? And then I narrowed down. And then as the races became more frequent and every race was a little bit, it was still important, I didn't have the space to build out and broadly again because I needed to perform well. So I know that if I train broadly, because I've done this, and then I try to perform well at the specific, it doesn't work as well. Like I'm not gonna like fall off a cliff and be like, oh, now I'm in bad shape. I'm still in good fitness, but the specifics of the fitness is not good enough to perform at the highest level possible for myself. So as the season started from November then to uh June, it was like preparing for a race, preparing for a race, preparing for a race. And I know what gets me the most prepared for a race is being specific. And then I basically just like hung on. I physically felt fine. I felt great. I felt like I was improving. I thought my speed was getting better. I thought my specifics were getting better. But in terms of performance, the margins in either direction were just like tighter, right? Like my high end ability wasn't going to be much better than where it was in November when it was June, because I didn't have that time to really work in this bigger base phase. And this is really hard for myself as an athlete who's competing in this, and for anybody else listening who is just like wanting to get better for their actual races. As the season starts, they kind of stack on top of each other. And then every race that you have coming up, you're like, I need to like be more prepared for the actual race. And then we do just end up having like this huge block of time. It's just like specific. And then the time that we're spending broad isn't long enough or big enough, or there's not enough like program blocks to make sure that we are actually getting like better as a whole. So it's hard to do. The summertime is a great way for those of us in North America and in Europe. The APAC region is when they race, so it's not a time, or our summer, I should say, is not a great way to. It's not a great time for them to like work broadly. But if you can find that time twice a year, like do it in the summer, and then if there's that like lull between like November and like March or something like that, and you can put some sort of like broad block in there, that's really helpful in terms of like consistent improvement over the long haul. Right. So in terms of strength, what I wanted to do here, so now that I had this block of time, I wanted to work on moving well. At the end of last season, I started to put in plyometrics. I think that works. Highly recommend plyometrics in terms of just like athletic ability, just being able to move well and being able to move fast. It's part of training that we don't typically do in endurance, even though we should. And it just like helps everything across the board. But when you're doing it, doesn't feel like incredibly, doesn't feel super helpful the way that running even at zone 2 or running at zone 4, how that feels helpful. But plyometrics do help. So I wanted to kind of double down on that a little bit and kind of move into the speed phase of things a little bit more. See what could happen in terms of my total strength and my ability to move well if I was moving with intent each with every like movement essentially. So I moved into what they call velocity based training, a VBT block. I used a sensor called output sensor, which if you follow Laura Rentala, she has been putting up some really great content around how this sensor kind of works. But essentially what it does, it's measuring the speed in which you are moving. This one in particular, it's a vertical speed, right? So if you are doing like a vertical jump, if you're doing like a barbell squat, if you're doing a deadlift, a bent row, bench press, it's going to be able to tell you how quickly you are moving, or how quickly the object that the sensor is attached to is moving. And then there is a specific zone in terms of speed that you can work within, and the sensor will tell you if you're there, right? So it's like objective feedback in terms of how you're lifting, right? And a lot of times it's like, okay, we're lifting for strength. It's 3x5. I'm just going to get under here and I'm just going to do 5. However I can do it, however fast, however slow, whatever it is. But this is not like that. If you're not hitting the speed markers that you set to keep you within a specific zone, and that's what's actually nice about this output sensor is that it gives you 4 different zones, so that when you like said, it's like I'm working on maximum strength, and that barbell speed is slower because the weight is heavier. Or you want to work on power, right? And that's where I was trying to fit in, was like I wanted to be more powerful, so I wanted to be able to move something very fast. So the weight was like probably between like 55 and 75% of 1 rep max. And then when you have the sensor on there, it's going to tell you if you are in that power block. So like if you're in that power, like, yeah, I guess block is fine. And so like you would do a movement, and then you would get an audio feedback as if it was fast enough, or if it was too fast, or if it was too slow. If you were too fast, you added more weight, right? Because basically you want to move the heaviest weight possible at the fastest amount you could go, for like a certain amount of reps. And if it was too slow, you take some weight off. So it's like objective feedback in terms of like what you're trying to do. So it's kind of like heart rate training for strength. And then because of this, I was able to do more. I was able to do more frequency because I was getting this feedback and be like, okay, like I'm just going to stay within this zone. And a lot of times it was just like, wasn't heavy, right? Like wasn't heavy, like at all. So I wasn't feeling like I was getting like compressed or beat down or just like really hammered in terms of like my ability to bounce back. And it didn't feel like, if I'm doing like a back squat phase or like a deadlift phase, it just feels like, oh my God, I gotta like go here again. I gotta put this load onto my body. And it's just like a little bit daunting, right? So it didn't have that. So I worked that for several weeks, and before I moved into like the specifics, and then moving into a strength phase. How that worked, I think it was good. I don't think I really liked that I was able to do more in terms of frequency, so I could do it more often. I don't necessarily think I felt like stronger. I think I felt a little uptick in how well I was moving across the board and everything, after like pretty quickly, like after like 2 to like 4 weeks. I was like, okay, like I'm running well. Like when I'm swimming well. Like I just feel like everything, I'm moving like quicker. I'm moving well. I didn't necessarily feel like stronger. Um, and there has been some studies, I could dive into these deeper than I have, that show that the amount of strength gain in terms of velocity based and like max strength is like almost the same, right? So it's like if you are moving something really fast with really good intent, like you can absolutely get stronger in terms of like power output. But I didn't necessarily feel that way. But when I did go back into like a strength block, my percentages weren't that much different. Like I didn't really drop. It was right around the same as where it's always been. So so did I lose strength? No. Did I gain it? Like, I don't think so, but did I gain like speed? Yeah, I think I did. I think I was able, and like, and then it also allowed me to like move better, right? And that's something else that happens when moving in a strength block that's like really, really heavy. Sometimes the movement, like the rep quality gets cut short because you're just like working really hard to move this massive weight. So say like a back squat, for example, like I will try to position myself in the best way possible so that I can and for me, that's like low bar. So I move the barbell off of like the top of my shoulders, off my traps, and kind of move it to like the center of my upper back. And that just puts me in a way better position to move heavier weight. I can do way more squat. I can squat so much better with like low bar than high bar. But because I was using the speed-based stuff, I was able to do high bar. High bar is going to be a little bit better in terms of translating positionally for things like wall balls and for lunges, right? Your torso is a little bit higher, and everything's like straight up and down. So I was able to work in better positions because of this, and I was able to get that kind of feedback. So I think the intensity was higher, and I feel like that has absolutely worked. So I think velocity-based training is something that there is a viable application for HYROX for this. And also put in this, and it wasn't as like dialed for the small coaching group that I run. We did that together as well. And some people came out with like pulling PRs and deadlift after not doing anything strong. And these are like athletes who are like advanced. So that is encouraging, right? Like, but they were using more like, that was more intuitive. It was like 55 to 75% fast, and less with like the audio feedback with the actual sensor. But the results that they got are very encouraging as well, because again, these are advanced athletes who are able to improve their strength without like going super heavy. And I found the recoverability to be way better, way better. In terms of the sequencing, I think I could have undulated it a little bit better. I think if it was like one day was heavy, one day was fast, or like 2 days are fast, one day was heavy, I'm having like an undulated progression like during, I think would have been better. Or if I had like shorter blocks where it's like 3 weeks fast, 3 weeks heavy, 3 weeks fast, 3 weeks heavy, I think is another viable option. Or even just like flipping it, going heavy first and then fast, I think would have been a good option as well. But having it be having the velocity based was really helpful when my aerobic training was high. So let's go on and move into the aerobic training of things. So I also wanted to make so the same principles apply that I just talked about in terms of like working broadly. In terms of aerobic training, I feel like that's the same thing. Like there needs to be time where you can kind of really build big, so that when you start to narrow down, you have a bigger base, you have better aerobic fitness, you can handle more work, you can recover better, and like you can just like breathe better, right? Like that's ultimately what we want to do. We want to like do more work externally and internally, aerobically, like not have it be the same amount that we did, the same amount of effort as before, right? So this was a lot more just like grinding on zone 2. For me, I keep my running. I don't really jump that in terms of volume. It's just too hard to recover from. I was able to run a little bit more in terms of the dosage toward the end of the block and kind of leading into now, where like my longest run would be like 60 minutes. It's like for real. Now I do like 70 minutes, like 2 or 3 times a week. And I was able to kind of build that up as I went. And that feels like good now. So it feels good to progress that. I don't think it's really valuable to go much more than like, if you want to do like 13, like if you want to do like 90 minutes of running, I think that's like plenty, just from the recoverability standpoint. At a point when you start running that type of zone 2, like the physical breakdown isn't like what we're going for in HYROX. Like we are going for the aerobic building piece. As we do like these longer runs, 2-hour runs, 2.5 hours, we're building our resiliency in our like lower legs, our tendons, our muscles, just so we can be able to withstand a longer, more pounding when it comes to the race day, which is a half marathon and marathon. We're only running 8K, right, in HYROX. So to train like I mentioned before, like half marathon, like a high-end half marathon racer is probably experiencing the same thing stimulus wise in their quality sessions that we're experiencing in HYROX, but their but the physical beatdown and their physical resilience is way more important for their race day results than it is for HYROX, right? Like it's not that much running. The duration's about the same, but the running is less than half. So like we don't need to do so much of that. At least that's what I found. Listen, I've done uh 13, 14, 16 mile runs for HYROX, and like I performed not as well as I perform when I'm doing 8 or 10. um and that's just more fun. And then also, yeah, like the quality of the runs are better as well. Like if you're able to run well for I'd rather run well for 60 minutes than run well for 60 minutes and then like drag for 30. So what I ended up doing on the aerobic training side is sitting on the bike. That was really helpful for me, and I think that is valuable. For a while there, I was like, kind of like, oh, this will be great for muscular endurance. I think it'll be really helpful for the bike or the sleds. I don't know if that's the case. Just like the output is like the amount, like it's not that much resistance, right? Like that is really going to be helpful in terms of like moving something really heavy. But the aerobically, it is great. If you like know where your zones are, and it's going to be like a way less than your zone 2 running. Like I put it about 10 beats per minute less than what I'm running for my zone 2 on the bike. And that's a really helpful thing to consider as well. So when you sit there, you're not just like trying your hardest to get up to your zone 2 run heart rate, and like your just legs just burn out because you're just going too hard. And I definitely experienced that as I started cycling more and more. But that type of adaptation comes around pretty quick. And then once you kind of get through this point of like discomfort muscularly, you can really sit on there and go. And any cyclist can tell you, or if you follow any type of cyclist, like they do a lot because like it's a fixed range of motion. Even like the ski and the row, even though it is very low impact, the range of motion isn't as fixed. Like you can still have like bad form on a ski erg or a row erg. On a bike, like you can't really have bad form. You can be set up in a position that is not great, but like that's just like the bike setup. But like the pedals are the pedals. You're like not, you can't like move yourself in this wacky range of motion like you can in running or even in rowing or ski. So like the fixed range of motion is great for recovery. Which is like super helpful. So I put a lot of time and emphasis on that. One thing that I also did as well is I put this in the back, like my cooldowns after quality sessions were long. Like I was doing like 30 minutes, 35 minutes of just like zone 2 biking after a quality session. And it was just like real easy to get into that aerobic heart rate zone and just kind of sit there and go. Um, in the past, I have tried to just like keep this volume base high as I was getting into a performance phase. For me, it just doesn't work. I got to a point where I was feeling um, maybe overtrained. I guess overtrained is the word. I remember I experienced that I had high heart rate recovery metrics, like much higher than they had been. And I had a couple of not great workouts within this week. And this was about 6 weeks out from the race. So I guess like 5 weeks ago. And that was kind of the mark. And I think I was going to take it to 4 weeks. And at that point, I was like, now I need to shift. I'm at the point now where I need, it's close enough at like the 6 week mark that if I shift into um, a performance block, I will keep this aerobic strength. It won't build higher, and I'm going to start to slowly cut this volume down as in the aerobic work each week. So it wasn't a sharp cutoff. Like if I listened to the taper episode last week with me and Ryan, we talked about like the two different ways to do a taper. You can cut off like really sharp, or you can taper it down. And the further away you are starting, the more you should taper. Last week we were talking about like if you're in this like 10-day window, right, which most people would be, then like you can do sharp, or you can do or you could do gradual. Um, so I started to gradually fade out some of this zone 2 work, just so it wasn't this like really sharp cutoff. 6 weeks is probably a little too much to just like drop by like 50%. So I slowly took that down and made an emphasis on the quality sessions. That's where that shifted for me, was that 6 weeks, and it bounced back quickly. In the past, if I've have these volume goals and they get too close to the race, it can come back. Like I'll come back and feel recovered, say within 2 weeks, but all the workouts from like that I'm building in those before that like 2 week taper are not that good, right? Like I'm doing it and I'm doing a lot of volume and it feels good to do all of that, but like the quality sessions weren't good. Like, but when I was in it, it felt like felt like I was doing the best that I could. And I was, but I was tired. Right. And so that is something that I really kind of pulled back on in that like 6 week mark. And this was going off of intuition more than just like numbers, right? Like, oh, I have this number goal. I want to get to this much zone two work. Like I did have that goal. Um, and I like didn't get there. But I don't feel like that's like a failure in training. It's just like the timeline that I had was unrealistic in terms of where I wanted to go. If I had another 6 weeks, I would have kept going. I would have taken a down week to kind of let these recovery metrics kind of normalize. And then I would have bumped back up. And then I was like, I don't need to perform well yet. I don't need to perform well quite yet. Right. So if I could get a bit higher, then the amount of how well I'm going to be able to perform during my quality sessions might be a little bit better. It's not like exponential, I don't think, but it's like it's marginal, and that matters. So I wish I had more time. I wish the first race was like in February. I wish Australia was the first one. Like have everything happen within a year would just make so much more sense. Like let's just like start the season in 2026. We can end it in 2026 instead of like, no, we're taking all the results from last year, making it matter for this year. Uh, I don't know. I don't know. Whatever. It's too soon, but whatever. We're grateful to have the opportunity. But in terms of sport, it's too much. And that's what I think will happen, right? Like the people who were in good form at the end of last season will probably have good races to start the season. Um, but if you have an auto qualifier, if you're like just like, hey, I don't need to be doing all this right now. I don't need to show up in October. Because last year we saw like those first two majors, the people who ran well and qualified, it didn't go necessarily that well later in the season at World Championship. So like October's like too early for sure. But that's what we got. So I had to kind of pull out of that like build phase to make sure that I was getting to the point where I could perform well with the actual quality sessions. So along those quality sessions, what do those look like? So this is something I just didn't change much of anything. Like I felt like I found the formula, and it's just accumulating time at zone 4. I will bang on this all day. For me, it's just like how much time can I spend in the most race specific way, and then just being creative around how those workouts kind of look. It doesn't necessarily need to be just like a zone 4 tempo run, although very effective. I have done that, and it is very effective. And then I put a little bit more emphasis on the machines, doing a little bit more ski specific work, row specific work. I shied away from that last season because I just like, in terms of the race, it doesn't matter that much. Uh, like how well you ski, how well you row. But in terms of fitness, it can build some serious fitness. So doing like actual threshold, that was kind of like sub threshold, like a little faster than typical, and just like building volume at working kind of fast at the ski and the row, kind of blending it, and then same kind of principles, right? Like working broadly and then narrowing and making it more and more specific. I don't have a ton of report on this. That's just like the methodology that I've had accumulating over the course of several weeks. For this one in particular, I kind of shifted the amount of like high end work that like I would want to like accumulate a certain amount, a number, right, of minutes in zone 4. For me, it ends up being between like 90 and 100. So it's like 45-minute blocks twice a week is what I like to do. Like I like bigger dosage, less frequency. Some people like the double threshold method, whatever. Like you can get that, you can get there, you can get more. But I just find it too hard to recover from, and less effective in terms of like specifics. So 2 big blocks. And then in these last 2 weeks, it's been like 1 big block and 1 like kind of half block that's like more like speed, just because that can be really a real grind as well. It's like, oh my God, I have another, because 45 minutes is zone 4. That's a 55-minute workout. That's closer to a 60-minute workout because it's like it takes some time. If you like jump right into zone 4, like if you want to get to zone 4 in like 2 minutes, you're probably working at like zone 5 effort because like then that will keep creeping up. You're not just going to go that fast, get there, and then like like maintain. I guess you could try, but like usually when you like the trajectory that you're set on in a quality session kind of like keeps that course so that when you are um like, and that's what's like really hard about like accumulating this in much time is having the patience to slowly get there and then just sit. So yeah, 45 minutes is actually 55 to 60 minutes, which is hard. Doing two 60-minute HYROX workouts twice a week, if you're doing it at the intended uh, intensity, is like hard. And if you're doing that, and like if you're doing that twice a week, and you're doing it 3 times a week or whatever, you're probably not going hard enough. And you're like, oh no, I'm doing it, but like you're probably not. And then again, that's what we're kind of, is that like that's more like junk. That's more like work for the sake of work as opposed to like quality. And that's on it's like a major emphasis. Like when it's quality, make it quality. So yeah, a lot we can do there. A ton of workout examples in the RMR Training app. Another plug, but lots of examples there for what we got going on in terms of how to actually structure these things. So yeah, those are the main things that I feel like have worked really, have been pretty solid. Another major point of emphasis here, biomechanics, making sure that movement is appropriate, making sure we're moving well. Um, this is so nuanced, right? Around like each individual, each person's going to have different limitations and different experience in terms of like their their movement quality. So sometimes it's not that good. But it's hard to be like, I did this, so you should do this, and it'll make you feel better. It's not the case, right? I wish it was. But taking time every other day, some sort of static mobility, or static stretching with mobility, using the GoWatt app. I think that that's a really good tool. It's not that expensive. And it's just like set it and forget it type of stuff. I think that that's helped quite a bit. And then just like, again, the velocity based training, and then just moving in different, like, having like different mechanical um, focus so that I'm moving well. And for me, something that I do prescribe often is like, if you are in this like 40 plus age group category, movement quality is probably what's going to set you apart from the competition, as opposed to just like fitness. Everyone's fitness is going to be a certain point, but as we get older, like the more and more the world just pulls on you. There's gravity just like sucking you down, or you're just like in an office job, or you're sitting more often, or just like the amount of like the ways that you're moving over the course of like the last 10, 15, 20 years has been like the same, right? And so we're not moving in different like planes, and so we're end up like having these compensations, and we're getting like a little bit stuck. So making sure that we are doing our best to undo that is going to be huge in terms of like your recoverability, your ability to do work, and just how much effort it's going to take to do that work. So this is for running as well. Working on the biomechanics of running is really important. There is not, there aren't that many good, like great runners here in HYROX. So it's a massive opportunity that if you can become great at running, or just like move great, like you're just going to have such an advantage. So taking the time to do that, again, it's something I've been doing for the past like year or so, like really putting an emphasis back. And for me, I was like, I've been running, so I'm good. Like I think I'm fine, but I was wrong. Like, and now I've been able to work on some different things to help improve my running piece even that much more. I think, other than just being like, I'm going to run 1,000,000 miles a week. I'm going to do a ton of track work. Like that is helpful. And like ultimately, it's like if one person just did like mobility every day, and the other person did like no mobility but did threshold twice a week, like the person who's doing threshold versus the person not doing threshold is probably going to beat him in the race. But if they're both doing mobility, I mean, if they're both doing threshold and one person's doing mobility and the other person's not, the person who's moving better is going to beat the person who is doing the threshold. Even, and I think it's even like, oh, so the person's doing more threshold than the person who's doing the movement work and the threshold work. I think that person's going to have a better chance of running well. That's just kind of where I'm landing in terms of what's actually going to move the needle. So biomechanics really helpful. Need that all the time. Nutritionally, some different things. Let's see like what I've been working on. I have been testing out this new product called Nomio. It's broccoli sprouts. It's like pressed broccoli sprouts. It's supposed to reduce the amount of lactic acid that you produce. Um, yeah, I've been using it. I've 4 or 5 times. It's over at thefeed.com. I think it works. I think something's going on there. My performance has been good when using it, so I'm interested in keeping that rolling. Creatine dosage. There's been a lot of information going on around higher dosage of creatine. The standard's 5. I've been taking 10, pushing it to 15 some days, and they say there's some cognitive benefit. There's just like all sorts of benefit with it. It seems like anything that you need, like that's creatine's the answer. It's so cheap that it's worth just like jumping on. BPN creatine, just because I like BPN, they're a partner, and the quality of their stuff's great. That's also you can get that at BPN or over at the feed. I've played around with like the gummies. I think that are fun. There's different creatine gummies that make it easier to take a smaller dose later in the day, just so you're not mixing up water. And it's just like, you're just not like, I don't know, it's just easier. At first, I didn't really understand why you would want like gummies for your creatine because it's so easy just to get the fluid, but I like it. So those are the things I've been playing around with the most, trying to think what else we got going on that end. That has been moving the needle. I think that's really it. Those are the really things that have been new in terms of like what I've been doing in training that have been working. A lot of things on the nutrition side that don't work. Not enough time. Not enough time to talk about what ain't working. Yeah. So those are the things that I feel. That's just like a recap where we're at in terms of training, what's working, what's not. It's going to be an ever growing process. I'm not sure what we got going on for podcast next week. I am leaving for Europe tomorrow. I'll be in London. I'm staying in Kensington area or so. Looking for a gym. If anybody knows a gym spot out that way, holler at your mans. We'll be there for a couple of days until Wednesday, then going over to Hamburg. I just want to get my sleep adjusted in a place where they speak English. That just is helpful for me. If this were a cultural experience, I'd be going over to Hamburg and just being like hitting people with them donkas. But that's all I know. That's all I really know how to say there. So it makes everything a little bit harder, which is part of this international travel, which does kind of stink. It's like going to the grocery store, getting food, communicating with people. It's a little more stressful. It's a little harder if you don't speak the language. So that's why I'm going to Europe, England, the UK. And I'm excited to spend some time in London. Seems great. And I get a direct flight. It's awesome. Then I will be over there. Meg will be over there. So it'd be great to catch up with her. Kent is racing Boston this weekend. So if you see Ryan up there, you would have already seen him because this is coming out on Monday. He's racing Sunday night. So he'll be out there. Hope that you are able to give him a shout, give him some love. He gives you some love. RMR Training app, mentioned him a bunch of times. Little teaser, we have a new running for HYROX program coming out. Our previous one was a 4-day a week, just like 2 quality sessions, 2 easy runs that were just going to help you get better at running. This is going to be a little bit more all-encompassing. It's going to have some of the biomechanic things that we talked about, some mobility things that are going to help move the needle further than just like straight line running. And it also is going to incorporate strength and a little bit more HYROX specific working. So this is going to be a program that is going to be like, hey, I want to get better at running for HYROX, but I also want to prepare for HYROX, which was something that we didn't have. And now we will have it. That'll be out soon. Also, a little teaser is going to be an RMR elite route that we can go, which is basically just gonna be my training. So if you want to follow along with what I'm doing, that's what that's going to be again down the road. No real specific timeline on when that's coming, but soon. Stay tuned. So I appreciate you listening. If you have it in your heart to give us a review, it's really helpful. We really appreciate that. It takes like 2 seconds on Spotify. Or a follow, we would love that as well. So if you're out there in Hamburg, say what's up to me and Meg. We'll get some sort of content rolling for you next week if it's just some sort of recap. I'm not exactly sure how or when or what that's going to look like, but cool. I appreciate you listening so much. Just me rambling on. Hope this was helpful. I'll talk to you soon.